Bill and Stefan came and watched us, and they stood in the middle of the crowd and they started a circle pit while we were playing. And I just remember like being on the stage being like, the guys from the Descendents are rocking out to my band right now. Like, how is this like a thing?
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Element 101 hailed from New Jersey and molded their own brandish scale of punk rock, reminiscent of Elvis Costello, the Go-Go's, All, and the Descendents. They issued their debut Future Plans Undecided in spring 2000. Stereo Girl followed in early 2001, and by the time Element 101 prepped for their third album, they reached a new musical level. More Than Motion, which was released in the fall of 2002, showcased a newfound confidence from the band, as well as a melodically tight sound. So on my quest to find more interviews with female-fronted bands or get more females involved in the interviews to make this a non-boys club, I remembered Element 101 because they'd been brought up a few times in interviews, and luckily they had started an Instagram not too long ago, which to me meant that they were, reminiscing about the past, but it also opened up communication so I can contact them and say, hey, like, I would like to talk to Crissie about this time. And then I was connected with her, and she was like, fuck yeah, let's start talking about back in the day. So I got her on the phone, and this is what we chatted about. Hitting a cow with their van. This story's fucking crazy. Tooth and Nail Records. Being a harpist. The Music Store Sound Exchange. Recording at the Blasting Room. Old Wives and Action Reaction. Possibilities of a new song. And a ton more. If you want to go check out their Instagram, just go to Instagram and then look up element_101 and you'll go right to their page. You'll see they've got a playlist. They've got a YouTube playlist link on there. They've got some pictures from the past, and it's pretty cool. So go follow that. This weekend, I'm giving a discount on merch from today until Sunday. You can get 15% off by using the code WAYNE. That's WANE, all lowercase. If you're having any issues with that, just email thiswastthescene@gmail.com. But you can check out all the new merch I have. I have winter merch. I've got hats, stickers, pillows, naked photos of the Humble Beginnings boys, so much more. And again, it's 15% off this weekend, and that's it. Coupon code WAYNE, as in Wayne Firehouse, if you don't get the reference. Some people living in California or like fucking Europe who are listening to this, you probably have no idea what that is unless you've listened to many episodes, and you will. So that's great. If you have an awesome story from back in the day, please email it to thiswastthescene@gmail.com, and I will put it on my blog. I'm also going to start putting up some of my own stories up there. So kind of like back in the Lane Meyer days, and what songs were about that I wrote, or maybe just some things that pop up in my mind that might be cool stories. Maybe tour stories. I don't know. I'm not really sure yet, but that's what I'm going to do. Real quick before we start, I just want to give a shout out to just help out welcomehomerefugees.org. Nina Saporta had posted on her Facebook page that they need laptops, and what it said was, the kids started school and many are being asked to complete homework on a computer. If you have an old laptop, you can donate. They'll wipe the hard drive clean and you can call it a tax write-off. Just message us or write to hello@welcomehomerefugees.org. You can also make a monetary donation at that website if you want to. So if you have an old laptop and you want to help out some asylees or refugees, then you can just go to, again, welcomehomerefugees.org, or you can email them at hello@welcomerefugees.org just to see how you can help. Feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. It's like when we toured back in the day, when you'd be like, you know what, the band's doing really well, and then all of a sudden it would break down. You're like, I can never say that out loud ever again.
Yep, ever again. No way.
There was one time I legit thought it. We were traveling, I think, up to Chicago, and I was in the back of the van, and I thought it. I go, man, the van is doing pretty well. Fucking black smoke starts filling the van. I had a fear of vans. And that was the second, yeah, that was the third one we had. And ever at that point on, I was like, I can never think positive things out loud, or,
Yeah.
I to think about. I can never say them out loud or even think them because they'll completely won't come true, and I'm jinxing it. And that didn't
And it
really
was
work
you're
out.
in the worst position too, like the middle of a cornfield somewhere, like
Yeah,
nobody anywhere to help you
that's exactly where it was.
every time.
I think there should be. I just finally I finally launched the website for this. Like instead of just a landing page on my animation site, it's like a full site. And I'm
Awesome.
I'm just trying to think of all these cool ways to kind of build on it. And I'm having people submit stories because I can't talk to everybody, but I think a lot of people can just say like, "Hey, this was this cool thing happened at Wayne Firehouse," or "This was something with this band." And I think something like this should be the top 10 shitty things that bands would have to go through when touring.
Absolutely. I have like some pretty I was a big driver. Like I would always take the night shift, and I never slept anyway overnight. And I have some pretty bad stories of I hit a cow one time.
What?
Absolute, yeah, absolute like nightmare.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it actually like we were on like I think we were, I don't know, we might have been like in Illinois or somewhere really flat. We were just driving, and it was like 4 in the morning. Everybody's passed out. I was like rocking out to I think like Fiona Apple by myself, and then
Amazing.
all of a sudden, like you know when something you get like something tells you to look a certain way and you don't know why.
You know when
So
a
I like,
fucking cow just jumps in front of your van?
well, it fell off the back of a truck on the other side of the highway,
Oh,
and it bounced over onto our side, and it landed exactly before the van. So I had no choice but to hit it. And I hit like half of it, like it was half of a cow.
oh my
And it was
God.
really gruesome. Like there was blood everywhere. And it was a rough when we brought it to get like cleaned up. Everyone was just looking at our van like, "Oh my God, what is this blood? Why is there blood all over this van?" It was pretty gruesome.
Oh
But
my God, that must have
yeah.
fucked you up for quite a
Yeah.
bit of time.
And then since touring, I only buy like or lease like teeny tiny cars because I'm just so like you like no, I have like a bad thing with vans now too. I'm like, what's the smallest car I can get?
Oh my God, wait a minute, hold on here. So, I this started, so, um, so you hit the cow, and obviously it didn't survive,
No, I
and
think it was dead before I hit it.
it fell off the back of a fucking truck. That
Yeah,
is awful. What a shitty life for this
I
person to know.
know.
Were you a vegan at the time, or are you vegan or vegetarian or anything like that? Or is anybody in the van or in the band?
Um, no, I mean I was for a while, like at the beginning, and then I think touring kind of actually stopped me from being a vegetarian because back then you didn't have any options. It was like Burger King was what you were eating. So
Yeah.
I think I like ended up stopping because of that. These days I'm like 95% vegetarian. Like I eat fish, and if somebody makes me something, like if I went to your house and you made me steak, I would eat it. But I don't really like making meat for myself. I do make it for my dogs, but
Do you find
yeah.
that you feel healthier because of that?
Yeah, I just feel like I really just straight up love vegetables, as stupid as it sounds. Like I love eating them and cooking them, and I do. I just feel like lighter and leaner, and like I don't know, my body like responds really well. I feel
That's
like it just
awesome.
like knows right what to do with it, and then it like just absorbs everything good, and it's like a nice easy lifestyle.
Yeah, I have a buddy who he's big into running, and last year he went vegan from a friend's recommendation, and he was like, I recovered so much faster. He just ran 100 miles. There's this,
Wow.
yeah, New Jersey has a thing called Veg Fest
Oh,
that my friend Marissa, she started it because she has a like a holistic center called Be Well in Morristown. So she's been vegetarian for a long time, or vegan for a long time, and she recommended to her buddy Bob, and he just started running like really far. So he did this thing. He's like, you know what? I feel so good because of this. I'm gonna run 100 miles from this point all the way down to Veg Fest in Atlantic City or wherever it was.
oh my God,
Yeah, it was about a month ago, I guess, and
that's pretty epic.
he did it, and he's like, yeah, man, I recover so fast because, and I've thought about, I had a couple weeks where I would buy all vegetable stuff, and I'm like, okay, cool, but I just never, like, I never figured out how to actually just see exactly what I was doing.
Yeah, it's a lot of work too.
Well, yeah, it's like, well, what the fuck I was like, I don't want to eat bread. and all the things
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. And more processed things.
Yeah.
And you'd think it'd be cheaper because you're not buying meat, but meat actually isn't that expensive compared to like fresh produce. Like it ends up like really racking up too. I would like to buy organic, but I can't really do that at the moment.
Well, you
But
also have to buy so much. I remember friends of
yeah,
mine, like Jeremy from Humble Beginnings, he's vegan with his wife, and Doug Robinson, he was in The Sleeping. It's his brother-in-law, and he went vegan too. And so when they post pictures, they have so much food, but then I realized that they have to because it's not that filling, I guess.
yes, you end up eating more, and a lot of it like shrinks when it cooks. Like you buy all those big portobello mushroom caps, and then they
Right.
shrink, and you
That's a
know,
good point.
so you're
Yeah.
like, wow, I just ate four of those.
Well, yeah, we don't have to talk about vegetarian or veganism the whole time. We're going to talk about some punk rock. We're going to talk about this is like this. That sounds like the podcast voice. Like, all right, everyone, we're going to talk about this now.
All from a cow.
Yeah, we've gone past a cow hitting a cow with a van, and then vegetarians, and we're only 7 minutes in. Perfect.
Right? We should just call it quits now.
Yeah, that's it. The end. I just like the music cues right now. Do you like being called Crissie or Christina?
These days I go by Christina because of my new like life, my job and everything,
Hmm.
and it makes me feel like a little more grown up. I think Crissie I never really loved, but it's just what everybody called me. Like I always felt like it was kind of like a cheerleader girl name or something.
Okay.
But not that there's anything wrong with cheerleaders, but it was what everybody called me. So I don't mind it. I don't mind anything.
All the cheerleaders, all the people who were cheerleaders
Yeah.
back in the day are all mad now. She's like, what an asshole.
Breaking my CDs in half. No.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, but you know the point of the podcast, right? It's just what we talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. I repeat it because I realize that when people find these episodes, this will be episode. This is actually going to be episode number 70. And
Nice.
yeah,
Congratulations.
yeah, I'm
That's
pretty
awesome.
stoked on it. But and I kind of think like, oh, well, if there's 70 episodes, everyone hears all of them, which is not true and stupid to think that. So I try to just kind of give everyone a refresher on what this is about. So again, it's like the late 90s, really just talking about the late 90s scene, early 2000 where and it started about talking about New Jersey, and then after a while I'm like, I think I need to branch out and talk about bands outside of Jersey. But as I'm doing that, I realized that there's so many conversations that I missed, and I was like, wow, there's so many more people I can talk to. And
Totally.
then yeah, and then you guys came up in a bunch because I was trying to find more female interviews because it didn't plan on it, but it became kind of a boys' club with people I was interviewing. And so I started
Uh,
asking people. I was like, I need more like female-fronted bands or record labels or anything. And then people started we started referencing, and you guys came up. Everyone's like, oh, Element 101. I'm like, oh, I fucking forgot about them. And so this is great that we finally got on this call on this 11 a.m. on a
yes.
Thursday. So
Thursday.
yeah, which makes me so happy because everyone else wants to talk at like 9 p.m. on like a Tuesday. I'm
Um,
like, fucking kill me. It's the
you,
worst.
you gotta stay up for it.
I hate it. I dread it leading up to it because I'm going, man, I want to just go out and do shit or do this. But once the interview starts, I love it. But it's like
Yeah.
going to the fucking gym.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
I
like,
can see.
it's gonna take. I don't have to wait all day. And what are we doing tonight? Oh, god damn it! I gotta think about this. And but then I do it. I'm like a little.
Right. It's so much better to get it done and then just relax the rest of the day.
Yeah, and when I'm in it, I love it. This is like my favorite thing, just talking. But yeah. So anyone listening, Element 101, they were a Jersey band, which goes along with the old school theme, which I really try to tie in as much as possible, is kicking it back into New Jersey. But they also were on Tooth and Nail, which was a label that I mean, I listen to bands still on that label, like Under Oath. I'm a huge Under Oath fan,
Oh yeah.
and which they started on Tooth and Nail. I don't even know if they're on there anymore, but
I don't know either.
yeah. But that label was like a big label back then where they had like like and I remember you guys were on there. I was like, damn, man, I really want to talk about that and what it was like to be on the label, and then I also want to talk about the Jersey scene So I have it all structured, and I'm going to stop
Okay.
talking so much. I'm going to let you, talk way more than me.
Try to stay on target.
But yeah, so what I like to do is just really go back in time, talk about what got you into music, how that led to punk rock, and what that led, and in this case, what led you starting in the band, what it was like to tour, what it was like getting on a label, any like random stories that come up along the way. Even if a story comes up and you don't think if it's like in that time period, just say like, "Hey, here's a story," or "Oh, I remembered this," and because that'll
Okay.
start to unlock. We'll start to unpack, as they say. And
Yeah, because it's from very long ago.
I always forget. I don't know how I remember so much from back then. It's literally I can clearly see all of this stuff, and when I talk to people, they like Josh from the Overdrives was one, and he said, "Man, I'm remembering so much stuff because of these interviews."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I just like blocked it."
I get it a little after Element ended, I was in another band and we did a lot of touring and I get mixed up. Like in my head I
Mm.
can't remember what was what a lot of times. It's like one big show kind of molded together.
Well, yeah, because I didn't realize that you were in Action Reaction with Jason, who was in Further Seems Forever after Caraba.
Hmm. Yep.
And that was wild because I was just doing my little research here, and it led to that. And I want to actually, just real quick, what did you play in that band?
I actually played keyboards and like synthesizers, and I did like organs and mini moog, and then I sang backups. So I kind of got to do more of like the songwriting
Oh, that's
and
cool.
musical end of it, which I really enjoyed. It was like fun to not be just the singer for once.
It's kind of cool that you got to witness being on two labels that were, I mean, again, from my perspective, Tooth and Nail is a big label, and Equal Vision is still a big label. They're still
Yeah.
going strong. So it's cool like, I always felt there was a comfort, it's like you can breathe a sigh, you can have like wait, breathe a sigh of relief. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
kind of
it.
like, oh man, thank you. There's something that we don't have to do so much, but we still have to tour, but we've got this. This is going to help us. And I always felt like that's always the feeling that I always wanted and never got.
Yeah, totally. Just to have somebody, there's people who want the best interest for you and to see you be promoted and do well too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's got to be fucking absolutely nice. But yeah, so let's go back in time. Let's go back to younger Christina, not Crissie, and let's go back to when you were a kid and what music or song or bands kind of triggered or caught your attention about music, and then how did that lead to getting into punk rock?
I actually am a harpist, classically trained harpist since third grade,
Oh wow.
which was kind of my first like musical thing that I wanted to do. I think I saw a harp player somewhere, God knows where, when I was like in third grade, and I was like, I want to play the harp. And my poor parents were just like, how do we afford this? What do we do? They tried to get me to take piano, and I was like, no, it's a harp or nothing. And somehow they made it work, and I took lessons from like third grade to 12th grade, and
Oh shit.
um, I just loved it. But I didn't like playing other people's music. I always wanted to just write my own stuff. So like that's why I never made a career out of it, because I just had no interest in playing stuff I didn't want to play or that I didn't write myself. Um, and so then I guess I could just kind of like sing a little bit anyway, just because being a little bit musical. And me and Danny Papa, the guitar player of Element, grew up together. Our parents like went to the same church, so we were kind of always around each other. And he was really into. He's like 2 years older than me, so he was really into Tooth and Nail records and really into like punk rock and everything. And we started to become like best friends around probably age 14, 15 for me.
Okay.
So I was just getting into high school and like starting to like think about starting to kind of be the black sheep of my family a little bit, and kind of dyeing my hair with Kool-Aid
I
and
see being a harpist makes you a black sheep of the family. Like I'm rebelling with this beautiful sounding
I know.
music.
It's angelic.
This angelic sound makes me so like,
Right.
going against the grain, mom.
I know. But I think from a little kid, I just always wanted to be different. Like whatever everybody else was doing, I did not want to do. So I guess in that sense, it was like, no, I'm not playing the piano like my sisters. I'm playing the harp.
Was there a reason for that? Like when you were, because you said at 3 you wanted to do this, and from 3 to 12th grade, which means you were 18 or 18.
Yeah.
So that's about, 30 years. My bad. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So a good solid 15 years of doing that. But when you grew up, did you find that you were in a specific crowd, like group? Because back then, I'm sure it happens now, but there was the popular crowd, the
Oh
non-popular
yeah.
crowd, just kind of like where
I
did you
didn't fit
fit in
in
that?
any of them, to be honest. Like I was always the person that was nice and everybody liked me, but nobody like welcomed me into their cliques. So like
Hmm.
everybody would be like, "Oh, hey, Crissie," but like I never was hanging out with people. And my parents made me go to like a private high school up in Hawthorne with
Okay.
my sisters, and I mean, I just freaking hated it. I really hated it. It was like very preppy, back then it was just all like soccer players and preppy kids, and I definitely didn't fit into that. So I really just didn't have any friends from high school that I hung out with. So it really became Element, which started with me and Danny when I think, like I said, I was about 15. And then we had our first Element show on my 16th birthday, which is New Year's Eve.
But did that get you? So you said Danny.
Yeah.
So did Danny start? You said he was into Tooth and Nail and things like that. So would he? What was like the first song? I mean, in that stage, it was mixed between hardcore, punk, ska, emo. Like, was there a specific CD or song he played, or was he your gateway into the music?
Yeah, definitely. We would, I mean, we loved all sorts of bands. Like, we would listen to like Descendents a lot. And as far as Tooth and Nail, I remember hearing Starflyer Gold record and just being like, this is awesome.
Who was that?
Like, I think that was like
Starflyer?
one of the first CDs that like, oh, Starflyer 59.
I've
They
never
were
heard
a
of them.
Tooth and Nail, kind of like a grungy, just really cool, loungy band.
Oh wow.
Um, they had a gold record, silver record, and then a few after that. But that was the first Tooth and Nail band I think I heard. And then they always had these great comps that would just have weird stuff on them. Like there's a band Morella's Forest, and just like just really strange music that like I had never heard before. That was definitely not meant to be mainstream at all. And that's
Okay.
kind of like my first memories of Tooth and Nail, was like this really artsy. I think the comps were called like artcore, and they were just really artsy, weird bands. And I was like, this is awesome.
That's funny because I remember Tooth and Nails being. I heard about them because I think MXPX,
Okay, yeah.
and that was when we knew. And we're gonna still stay in the 15-year-old era, but the big thing I remember from Tooth and Nail is that they were the religious label.
Yes.
They were
And
the
that,
Christian label.
unfortunately, like, you get categorized with that, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, and I want to definitely talk about that when we get into that whole thing. But so, okay, so you and Danny are friends. He's showing you music. You then are finding your own music. Do you remember any record stores that you guys would go to and like get new stuff from?
Oh, yeah. We would go to Let It Rock in, was that Montclair? What was the one in Montclair on Bloomfield Ave?
Oh man, I
I
have
need to
no
phone a
idea.
friend. Um,
You're losing punk
uh,
points right now.
I think it was Let It Rock. We would go there all the time. It's not there anymore, obviously. And then there's one on Route 23 in Wayne.
Sound Exchange.
I can't remember the names.
Sound Exchange.
Sound Exchange, thank you. We would
Yeah.
go there a lot. We would
Oh.
definitely go there quite often. And there's another one. We would just go to any we could find, like anything that was around. And Danny would always take me. And I would always be like, I actually didn't really like going, to be honest, because it would just be really overwhelming. Like, I just remember standing in the middle and just being like, what do I look for? I don't even know.
You know what I remember? I remember doing. I wrote a list and I kept it in my wallet. So anytime I would stumble into a record store, I knew exactly what it was I was looking for.
So you need that. Otherwise, it's just hours of like flipping.
Oh yeah.
Plus, when you're that young, you don't have money. So, like,
Yeah, too.
that also was a thing, too. I was like, well, I'm not going to look for something if I can't buy it.
It kind of makes sense for all the people who talked about the used bin or the in flip side there was a bin.
Flip side, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was like a free bin or something like that, and that's where I think why we all gravitated towards that. I'm like, well, I've got
Yeah,
$5, and that's for Taco Bell and maybe a CD, so
exactly.
I gotta,
Exactly.
I gotta make this
Yep,
last.
totally. It's like a taco supreme and a CD
Yeah.
or tape.
Well, that was it. I mean, that was why we went to Sound Exchange so much because my dad lived in what the fuck was that? area. He lived in Wayne at Packanack Lake, and
Oh yeah.
so me and my buddy Chris, who was in Lanemeyer with me, and my buddy Bob, we'd stay there and we'd walk up to Sound Exchange from his house. And the biggest thing, we were so excited because we'd go there and then we'd walk over to that Taco Bell. I think it's still there on Route 23.
I think it is still, yeah.
Yeah.
We were there all the time. We were probably there at the same time.
I bet we were. I bet there was times where all of us, not all of us, but a lot of us didn't know who we were, but just like like you said, flipping through all the CDs and just everyone's all quiet. No one talks to each other. They just kind of pass by each other, and it smells like old carpet and like the plastic.
And the guy working there was always awesome.
Yeah, they just always played that music, and you walked up, and I always felt embarrassed with my choices. I'm like, is this acceptable? Can I buy this? So how did you guys start? Like, at what point did you decide you wanted to start a band?
It was pretty soon after me and Danny started hanging out. So I guess like age 14, 15, and he wanted to do a girl-fronted band. Like he definitely was like, this is what I want to do. And there really weren't a lot of anything to go by back then. So I think No Doubt was probably the only thing I knew that was like, okay, that's cool. And we had our original bass player is a good friend of ours who was really into hardcore and metal. And, he basically did bass for us, but didn't like the music, but just wanted to be in a band, you know? And then we had a guitar player. We kind of started adding members, but pretty soon, I'd say within a year or so, we had, the original lineup. I think Nick, the drummer, joined us a little bit later. But what
was the dynamic like with you guys? Did everyone get along? Was there any people that just butted heads?
Actually, we really got along really well. Like throughout our time together, I felt like we were just a family. And, you know, especially not having like a group that I fit into in high school, it was like, these are the people that I hung out with all the time. Like these were like my friends, my family. Like we were busy every weekend, like summers, like that was like my clique. So I look back at it like super fondly. I think as we got towards the end of our career and started getting, you know, significant others and family dynamics, things get stressed. And unfortunately, like we kind of ended on a rough note, but now we've been able to kind of like, you know, now that enough time's passed, like you come back and we're actually like still talking again. So I think there was always like me and Danny were always super tight because, you know, we had our original friendship. I stayed really close with Nick, the drummer. I think he stayed close to everybody throughout. And then like Chris Mazzone, our other guitar player, and Sal Saravino, the bass player, they grew up together as kids in Wayne. So they stayed close. So everybody's kind of always been in contact with somebody. But during Element, it was like the greatest thing for sure. Like we were super tight.
We'll talk about your first show.
It was pretty bad.
It was bad or rad?
Bad.
Go on.
It was actually at our church in like some gymnasium or something, and it was New Year's Eve, which is my birthday, so I was like super stoked. But it was just scary. Like I was a pretty shy kid, so at the beginning of Element, I really I wanted to go on stage, but I was so scared. And I got much better and happy. And now I like use those skills, like being able to be on stage to like give presentations and stuff. Like it's a really useful thing to have. But I remember just being like petrified at that show. But I guess it was good. You know, it's as good as any first show can be, I suppose.
First shows suck. I mean, no one gives a shit who your band is. There's no one that's going to pay attention. And you have this vision of what you think it's going to be like, and it's never that, ever.
No.
And
it's always like this giant stage, you know, where like people can't even really like see you, and like the lights are so bright anyway. It's just like like a bad dream.
How did you figure out that you wanted to sing?
Danny just was like, I want a girl singer. I want to start a band. And he had actually started a band right before me called Birdhouse Blue with one of his friends, with a boy singer. And, but he was like, no, I want to do it with a girl singer. And so I just kind of, I don't know. I'm like that type of person that's like, I will just learn something to do it. Like whatever it is. I like learning new things. So I'm just like, okay, like I can sing. Why not?
That's
You know?
awesome.
And I loved the idea of writing lyrics and melodies. Like just this, I did a lot of artwork. So too, so it's just this very creative process of like somebody giving you a guitar riff and then being like, okay, make something work over this. And that to me was the fun thing about Element is I don't really think that my vocals go with the music. And I think a lot of people agreed with that and didn't like us because of that, especially in the beginning.
Interesting.
But it was what we were, you know, it was just like they wrote weird kind of pop punk, bizarre music that didn't really call for like melodic girl vocals, but it was like, well, this is what I hear in it, so I'm going to put this to it.
I was listening to some earlier stuff. Like, what's the first? I'm going to jump just forward for a second, but is Future Plans Undecided? Is that your first record?
That was our first like big record. We had like, you know, demo tapes and
Okay.
uh like little stuff before that. But yeah, Future Plans was the first
Yeah.
like big one. It was on Burnt Toast vinyl. Oh, and that we actually was produced by Mike Herrera, so it was like our
Oh,
first,
wow.
you know, thing. We were like, oh, this is like big time.
That's fucking gigantic. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was like a big before that, and we had Kids These Days. It was like another record we put out before that, but obviously, like I think Future Plans is our first bigger one. It was like re-released on Tooth and Nail also.
Yeah, I'm looking at so the NJPP archive. Have you visited this page?
No,
So Joe Polito, I talked about this so much, but one day in this the North Jersey pop punk group. Are you in that in Facebook?
actually, I don't know. I don't think I might be, but I don't think so.
I'll
I
add
will be
you.
now.
I will add you now. So he one day just said, "Hey, I did an archive of all of these bands from back then," and I was like, "What?" And he was on YouTube and he uploaded like every album from New Jersey, all of the local. He had all these demos and shit like this, and
Wow,
so he archived it. And if you go to njpparchives.com, it takes you to this giant archive where it's A through Z and it's got every fucking band from back in the day, and he's still adding shit. But
that's awesome.
yeah, and you guys are on here with which record is this? What is this? So Happy Together? It's a guy like you. There's a diner on the cover. It's like
Oh, that was
Kids These Days.
Kids These Days. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but you should check it out because because I always use it for references to figure out like if someone mentions a show, he has posters archived from back then.
Oh,
And
that's so cool.
yeah, I'm actually gonna add you now. Let me see this. I'll do it in a second. But oh, there we go. Okay, now you're in. Person you just tried is already a member. Okay.
Oh, sweet. Awesome.
See how much you. Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're really contributing to the group there.
Apparently not. I totally busted.
Yeah, but what I was about to say is that I was listening to some songs from Stereo Girl, and it sounded like I know that you said that there was bands back then where like who is it like Tilt they had this punk sound, but then she would just sing over it,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
there was a contrast to that, but I felt and I heard some of your earlier stuff. I was like, yeah, you were singing, and then there was this like fast sound in the background, but I felt by Stereo Girl, you
Kind of
it started
settled, right?
it blended.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was like our best. Like we found a good groove.
Yeah. But like leading up to that, when you guys started playing shows, what year was this when you started playing shows again?
Let's see, I would have been like 1996.
Okay.
That was like just playing random shows. That was like through high school. So probably like 95 or 6 to 98 was, and then we signed on with Tooth and Nail and then started kind of doing national stuff maybe 2 years after that.
Do you,
So
do you remember some of the venues that you started off playing in back then?
yeah, we played, I remember playing like a ton of fire halls, obviously. We played the Wayne Firehouse a lot,
Hmm.
and there was one in Cedar Grove that's not there anymore on Route 23, the Cedar Grove. I think we played there with Humble Beginnings, maybe.
Okay.
Um, and we would play a lot of like basement shows and like we even ventured to like Rutgers, Camden area for some like basement shows back then. I remember playing like I guess as we got old, like towards the end, maybe more like Club Chrome. Where was that? South Amboy?
Yeah, that used to be Club Benet, I think. Was that
Okay.
it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Yep.
think so.
There's like a small room and a big room. We played both. And then our favorite place for sure was Maxwell's, like without a doubt. Like once we got like actually could, draw some people, that was like our favorite place to play. But starting out it was mostly just like fire halls, basement shows. We would venture into Philly a lot too. For some reason we kind of like clicked with a lot of bands in Philly. Surf and Skate Fest.
Did you guys, when you were starting off though, how, this is just such a small thing, but like how, since we started off like this, how soon into it did you decide, hey, let's stop driving our cars, let's get a van?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably not till we started touring, like national touring.
So you'd be driving to Philly with just a bunch of cars?
Yeah, from what I remember having like caravans of cars.
Oh God,
Probably like once we were all out of high school. And then our first van was like a conversion van. It was like pink
really?
and it had like pink like velvet seats. It was so awesome. And like the track lighting, up at it was so awesome. And we took that thing all over the country, and then finally we had to say goodbye and get like a real 15 passenger. But that was like our first big purchase, was like that and a tiny trailer. But before that, it would be like Chris would borrow his mom's station wagon. Nick had like a Ford Bronco, and we would just, load
Wow.
load up stuff.
What was like did you guys sit down and have a conversation about a year or so? Like, I mean, I'm just gonna, we're not gonna dive into it, but how many years into the band was it before you got signed to Tooth and Nail?
We actually signed to Tooth and Nail in '99.
So you were a band for 3 years at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. So leading up to those 3 years, did you record anything prior to them? Oh yeah, you did. That was
We did
the
like demo that's pretty rough.
where
And then
where was that recorded at?
oh God, you know what? To be honest, it was like some dude's basement. Like it wasn't even a real thing.
It
It was like
wasn't a real thing.
somebody.
This guy's like listening to it now. He's like got a tear in his eyes. Like that was a real studio.
It was like no, it was like a shed. It was a shed in some dude's backyard that somebody knew,
Wow.
from what I remember. But then actually we did where was it? Actually, Danny had recently, like I asked him questions like this. I was like, what is some history? Because I forget stuff. But so Danny told me that we did Kids These Days. We did record in Delaware. It was called Clay Creek Studios, and that was produced by Cliffy Huntington from the band Tooth and Nail band, the Huntingtons. So that was probably our first and then that later got we like put it on Burnt Toast vinyl and whatnot. But that was like our first like drive to a studio and like record something in a professional studio. And that was 1998, so it was like right before we got signed.
When you started singing, did you find that there was bands that you liked to not emulate, but you kind of like we would listen to bands, we would try to match really, we would try to sing really high because we would listen to Mineral or who else would we listen to that had high voices? Like any band that had a high voice. So me and Chris would really try to go for those high fucking notes, which fried our vocals. Did you find that
Oh.
was there any like singers out there that you said, I really am, it's like you almost you tried to mimic them, but still make it your own style?
Um, I think like my favorite girl voice was Mazzy Star.
Oh yeah.
Still is. Like I just love that record. Like I will like Fade Into You will be
Yeah.
playing for the rest of my eternity
So
in my
good.
head.
So
But
great.
so she was like somebody that I really liked the quality of her voice. Um, but I think mostly, to be honest, I was most influenced by oldies. So growing up, my parents were like super strict about stuff, but they let me listen, like, when I was like very young, like elementary school, junior high, like they would let me listen to oldies, but like they were strict about other musics. Like, and I just loved the oldies. So like 50, 101.1 was like the station, and they would play like 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yep.
And so a lot of that stuff, like the Supremes, like that's kind of what really, in my head, what girl singing was. And I
Hmm.
think, and a lot of those like melodies and harmonies and stuff. So I think like I said, Element, the music that they gave me, like they would just give me a tape that we recorded on a tape player in the basement that sounded like the worst thing you've ever heard. And then they'd be like, here you go. And I would try to like sit in my room and write melodies to these horrible recordings. But I think that's really where a lot of my influences kind of came from, was just being raised like on that type of music and trying to find a way to put something melodic to something that I didn't think was very melodic.
Did you feel that when you were growing up, you were a lyricist, or not? What am I trying to say here? Did you feel when you were growing up that you were a writer, or did you become a writer when you had to start writing lyrics?
I think I probably became a writer when I had to write lyrics. Like I would definitely write the melodies first. I would hear like the notes I wanted to sing and then try to find lyrics that I liked that would fit into that. Where I know some people write these like long, things and then try to fit that into a melody. So I kind of did it the opposite way.
Oh yeah, I'd always do the melody first, and be like, no, 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 and then I would just say what word would fit here, and how do they
Yeah.
rhyme with the next line.
And if something doesn't fit, you just always throw the word baby in and it's okay.
I don't think I can get away with that. That would be like, so did you ever say that in a song?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was
I
like,
said baby.
I feel like that would just, I would have not have gotten away with that at all. I think I've even heard people say it. I'm like, ugh, throwing this fucking CD out the window.
Or I remember doing like a lot of na-na-nas. There's like, I forget what song it was, but I remember like I just ran out. I was like, I don't know what else to say. So I was just like, na 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 na.
See, that's cool. That's different.
That's fine.
I always loved the songs back then that threw in random shit like that, where there would be like there'd be whistling or hand claps. Hand claps were
Yeah,
always a big one. That was a huge one. People would lose their fucking minds at live shows. We didn't do that, but other people, when I'd see bands, and
that's totally true.
if they'd be like, "Oh, this is the hand clap part," and the whole crowd would start doing it. Like even if no one really knew the band, or like if they kind of knew the band, people would just be like, "Oh, we're hand
You
clapping now."
join in. Yeah, that's great. That's genius. I should have done that.
Those were kind of cheap tricks that you could get away with maybe once every 15 or 20 songs, I thought.
Yeah,
Like
true.
how can we do this? I remember, yeah, there was always these bands that I'm like, how do I rip that off and put that into a song where it makes sense, and it's not like I'm doing this because it's such a cheap
Yeah.
move to get people to sing along or whatever.
Well, and the cool thing about playing synthesizers in a band for me was that I got to fill a lot of those empty spaces, whether it was like
Mm.
in between songs or in a song. Like it's just cool to be able to fill a space with something like sonically instead of,
Silence.
yeah,
Oh, I
or trying to
hated
awkwardly
that.
talk while everyone's tuning and you just want to die. Like,
I always love when bands do that, when they're done with a song and everyone starts tuning, and you're going, can't you just fucking figure out the set where you're blending? But when there's that
right?
sound in between, you're like, oh, thank God. Like, keep this alive.
Yeah, no, I know. I agree. That's why it's nice to have. I wish I had a keyboard back then, but it just wasn't the thing to do. But we played with one band. I don't remember who they were, but they had like a little record player and they would just play music that you would hear in between. You'd only hear it in between. And I was like, that is genius. I felt bad ripping it off, but I was like, that's so smart.
It's so sweet. At the drive-in, they had the boombox on stage.
Yeah, like that's great. Because
Yeah.
it is really, really, and like some shows, it's very natural to be able to talk to the crowd and like interact, but a lot of them, it's just not, and it's so hard.
Oh, it's so awkward.
It's so terrible. You're like,
Yeah.
so how's everybody doing tonight? So bad.
How long into playing did you find that you found your comfort in front, like playing in front of people?
I'd say it probably came around like the release of Stereo Girl. I think it was like you said, like kind of finding like this mesh with the music. Like before that, I would always feel like it was the band behind me and me in the front. And that's kind of just like how the music sounded, I thought, and that's how I thought we were live. And then I felt like with Stereo Girl, we kind of integrated everything, and I felt more a part of what was happening. And I think that kind of came out in our live show. So like I would interact with Sal a lot, and I switched microphone stands, which is like huge, like to not have the bent one and just to have a straight one. I remember when I got like my straight stand, and I was like, this is like I can like dance with this thing a little bit. This is really nice. Like
Interesting.
I feel like that's kind of when it started to and by then we had been playing shows for a while, so I was getting more comfortable with the idea of people looking at me. And and just being okay with, I think I was really proud of what we were doing. So it didn't matter like what other people thought about us. Like, were we too punk rock, not punk rock enough? Was that, like it just kind of became, this is what we are. And like, we're proud of it. And it didn't matter if there was like one person in the crowd or like 1,000. So I think that was kind of when it started to happen.
That's cool. Did you get kind of, I want to talk about Tooth and Nail next, but did you, because you said Danny wanted to have a girl-fronted band, did you feel that was kind of annoying after a while? If like, did people kind of pigeonhole you because of that, or did you just blend into the shows where that wasn't even a conversation?
No, I think it definitely pigeonholed us because it wasn't common. Like I'd almost always be the only girl in the band for a long time. I remember like trying to get to like the stage area, and some, whoever was watching the show would like not let me through. And I'd be like, dude, if you wait 1 second, I'm going to be singing on that stage. Like, you have to let me up there.
Wow.
Like it just wasn't common. They just thought I was a girlfriend or something for a long time, like touring. That was like always the case. It was pretty obnoxious, but we played, there's a band called Pink Daffodils from Philly. They were like a hardcore band with a girl screamer, and we would play with them quite a bit. And I remember feeling like, cool, like there's another one. But otherwise, I think we were always, and I feel like people either liked us or they didn't like us because of the girl singer. Like, we kind of drew a line for people. So, which is cool. I like that idea. But it can be hard when you're in it and you just want to be involved in a scene really bad. I think having a girl singer and then signing to Tooth and Nail Records definitely like isolated us a little bit.
Really?
But yeah, because I think, well, like I said, people either are like, okay, we like their style with the girl singer, or we don't. And then it was like, people just assume you're a Christian band, and they kind of ostracize you a little bit for that. So that would get brought up a lot.
I
But
bet.
we were never, yeah, like that, like to us, Tooth and Nail was this amazing vehicle that like got us out of our basement and like, helped us tour, and like we got to see cool things and play cool shows and stuff. So like, we were just super stoked about it. But I think that, people think you're a Christian band and they don't really, want to associate. Not that that's what it was about for us anyway, but.
I remember back then thinking that for Tooth and Nail bands, it would take me down a level for some reason, because I grew up Catholic, and the church on Sundays was so fucking boring and
Yeah.
just weird. Like, when people would start singing, or just the people who were involved in the church were so fucking weird that when I thought they're probably very nice, but I'm like, you're just really overly happy, or like, I don't
Yeah.
know, like you're wearing a giant cross all the time, and it's kind of odd to me. I don't know, but I just
Because they
kind
can't really separate it from like just being a normal person.
right. It was just too much. This is me. Like, this is who I am in this big way, and I'm like, that's great, but just for me, I think I associated when I heard about Tooth and Nail, and they were like, yeah, they're like very big into Christian, and then everyone started, then rumors come around where they talk about how it was like, I think it was like a Mike Herrera from MXPX thing, and or all those guys, when people would talk about like, yeah, all these guys, like, what was it? They had to be married before they can have like sex or something. I don't know. There was some rumor
Oh,
going
yeah,
around.
yeah.
That was like a big thing, and you're thinking like, it just put me off for some reason, and but it was a smart thing because they niched down and said, look, like, and I don't know the whole real story behind them, but it was very apparent that that was their mission or whatever it was, or
Yeah,
whoever they
yeah,
backed.
for sure.
Yeah, and it's like that's, I think when you super niche down into something, it's going to bring people in, the right people, and keep the wrong ones out, and just be like, look,
Yeah.
we don't fucking want you to be here. Like, this is for this crowd, because
Yeah, very
yeah,
true.
and there'll be a way stronger fan base in that sense. But I think it's interesting too that you had said when you met Danny, he was introducing you to Tooth and Nail band. So was that on his radar from a young age that he wanted to be on Tooth and Nail?
He was really into, I think I remember Danny being into, like, he was into a lot of like metal and stuff, actually, like when I first
Nice.
met him. And then he kind of like, I don't know what was the first band he listened to on Tooth and Nail, but something like got, caught him on Tooth and Nail. And he, at that time, it was like, you know, like we were in that like kind of grungy, let's go Salvation Army shopping and like,
Yeah.
like that. So it kind of fit in very well with that because it was just like weird music that we could like burn incense in his room and like listen to stuff. It was just like it just fit in really well with like what was happening socially at that time. And so yeah, he kind of like heard a few bands or got some compilations, and then he was like, I want to be on this label. He's like, they put out cool artsy stuff. And he had reached out to the owner, Brandon Ebel, about, I think we sent a demo and didn't hear back. And then we ended up Danny made contact with Mike Herrera from XPX and was like, hey, we're like a female fronted pop punk band. You want to, produce our CD that we're making right now? And he just said, yeah. He was like, sure, that sounds fun. Like, fly me to Jersey and I'll do it. So,
wow, that's crazy.
So then that kind of helped us because obviously they were on Tooth and Nail. And then we played a festival. And I remember the owner from Tooth and Nail came out and like took photos of us and kind of listened to us. And I was so bummed because we got like the first slot of the day. It was like 10 a.m. Like you can't sing at 10 a.m., especially when you're like 18 and you don't get up early. Like I was so mad. I remember just like being in the van trying to warm up at like 8:30, like I can't do it. but yeah, he really liked us, and that's how we ended up kind of signing with them right after that. So yeah, Danny definitely is responsible for getting us out of the basement. Even with early shows, like he helped us get on all the local shows and stuff. He was definitely kind of like the manager / guitar player. The rest of us were just all artsy people who just wanted to play songs and like probably would have been happy playing basement shows forever. So we had a personality like that.
Did you get any backlash, not for the whole label of what their style was, but it was because you guys were only a band for 3 years? Were people giving you shit like, how the fuck did you get on there?
Not that I remember. Maybe people thought it, but I never really heard that from anybody.
That's good. I feel like
good.
I feel like I would have been I feel like I would have been a shitty person, been like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I would have been too. Actually, that's a very valid point.
But what was the process like when you guys signed to them? Did they make you sign some big contract? Was it a handshake?
No, it was a contract, and we didn't know anything. So Chris Bazzone's uncle, I think, is a lawyer. Somebody in his family is a lawyer because like we couldn't afford a lawyer, and they looked it over for us. And to be honest, I don't even know if it was a good deal or not. I don't remember. But I know they looked it over and they were just like, this is what you're doing. And we were going to sign it no matter what it said, basically. But we were excited about it.
How soon after you guys signed did you go in? Because did you record Stereo Girl with them, or was it Future Plans Undecided? Because that Future Plans Undecided, you said that's the one that Mike produced, right?
Yeah, that we actually re-released that on Tooth and Nail in 2000, so like right after we signed. And then that same year we went and recorded Stereo Girl in the blasting room out in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is owned by Bill Stevenson and Stephen Egerton.
Jesus Christ.
Which was like the coolest. And we did our last record there also. And I mean, that's like one of the ultimate highlights of our history, was meeting those guys and like becoming friends with them and having that experience. It's just amazing when you have people from a band that you hold on such a high pedestal and just think like, these are like the ultimate people. This is the ultimate band. And then you meet them and they're just amazing human beings. Like it's just so rare and wonderful for that to have happened.
So it's so funny because when I'm listening to all these interviews and I'm remembering where people got to and how they got there, there's always these moments that I hear in a lot of these interviews where there's some idea that pretty much majority of the people I've interviewed had when they were younger, and then it came to fruition. And again, like I'm kind of a person where I'm a big law of attraction fan and, all these things just because, I don't know, I just read a lot of books and for some reason I am. But I mean, I did an interview with Josh from the Overdrives, and he says like randomly in the beginning, he goes, yeah, I met Josh from Bigwig. He gave us a demo tape, and then we listened to it in the car, and we're going, "Oh my God, we got to step our game up." And he said, "I just really wanted to be Bigwig." And then eventually, he got in the band. And you talked about in the beginning when you're listening to music, and you listen to the Descendents, and Danny was talking about Tooth and Nail. Again, it could be coincidence, but for some reason with me, I just think that people get these ideas of what they want to have happen, and they kind of, if they really want it to happen, they just kind of go for it, and it sometimes just shows up like that. It doesn't, I'm trying to sound like super weird, but it's cool that
No, I 100% agree.
yeah, and it's like, and people don't hear, but I hear these in these conversations. I'm like, my God, that's so crazy that this stuff really does kind of work like that sometimes with a lot of these conversations. Like, you guys get on Tooth and Nail, and then you're in Bill Stevenson's studio out in the blasting room twice recording, just going, how the fuck did this happen? But the little part of you
Yeah.
goes, I really always wanted this to kind of happen.
And I really truly believe that like if you have something you can see that you want and you have a good work ethic, like you can get there.
Oh, totally.
Like there you can do anything you want to do if you want to do it enough.
I 100%. I have said this with so many people, and people are like, "Yeah, but this." I go, "Yeah, but if you say that, then you're gonna just kind of just derail yourself." And it's like, why not just think about it? Because I remember being younger, and I just wanted to be in a band. Like, I remember me and my friends would put on shows in front of our parents, playing Bruce Springsteen, and we put on sunglasses and headbands and use rackets, like tennis rackets, and put on shows. And our parents hated it. They're like, "This is so uncomfortable."
Yeah.
But I just wanted to perform, and then I eventually ended up being in a band and perform and like playing, and I loved it. So I don't know. I just want to kind of just like throw that in there. It just
No,
get weird for
totally.
a second.
It is. It's like these little moments where you're just like everything connects for a second and you're like, wow. And then fast forward, we were the last time we played Surf and Skate Fest, we played like down in Asbury, we played some side stage outside, like in the middle of the day. Like it was pretty crappy slot, but so there wasn't that many people watching us. And Bill and Stefan came and watched us, and they stood in the middle of the crowd and they started a circle pit while we were playing. And I just remember like being on the stage, being like, what the, like the
Wow.
guys from the Descendants are rocking out to my band right now. Like, how is this like a thing, you know? And then, but they're like these beautiful people that I've become friends with, and it is a really
Well, I think another
neat
part
memory.
too, yeah, I think another piece of it is just being a good person or being nice. It helps really,
Yeah.
and like building true friendships, because then it doesn't be, then that barrier becomes from, you're going, initially, if you saw that and you didn't know them, you'd been like, "Oh my God, it's the fucking Descendants right now marching for us." And if they randomly would have to do that, if they randomly were doing that, but then it became, "Oh, there's my friends. Oh, and they're in the Descendants, and they
Yeah.
recorded us."
Right?
That must have just, I would have stopped playing, been like, I don't even know what's happening right now.
What to do.
I can't deal with this. This is just too amazing. I have to just pause
Like
and breathe.
a mental video. Yeah.
Yeah, just be in this fucking moment. Did you
And to
get?
know that somebody like that believes in you and like, so, you know, it's just builds your confidence so much.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, it's just, and it's cool too, because he might have been like, "Oh, I absolutely love these songs." You're going, "How did I write music that you fucking like? Like, what?"
He was Bill Stevenson was super stoked that we had a girl singer. Like he said when he heard the record, he was like, I want to do the vocals. I'm producing those vocals. Like he was
Wow.
really into it. So Stefan did all the music and then Bill and me worked together on that. And he just thought it was different and cool. And the first record was produced, by Mike Herrera, so we got a little of his West Coast influences in there. And Bill was like, none of that for this. It's like, you just be you, like bring what you have, like
Mm.
East Coast and all, like you just, that's what I want to hear come out on this record. And I think it totally did. And that's, why that record sounds so integrated.
But when he said that though, what did you think of? Like, how did that, like, what's the word? Like okay, let me rephrase that. When he said that to you, how did you get what he was saying and then utilize that and put it into the record?
Because I think a lot of it was like phrasing actually. Like, Mike Herrera kind of has that, you know, pop punk phrasing of the way he sings.
Yeah.
And I think to Bill, like he thought in the record we did with him, that was kind of influenced on me. So
Mm.
he wanted me to just, oh, and there was a band called Letters to Cleo,
I
actually.
love Letters to Cleo.
He was very influential in my life at that time. Like they were like my favorite girl band at that time. So I remember showing them, talking about that with Bill, and I was like, I'd like to sound more like this.
Mm.
And he was, so we would have like little code words for things, like when I would be recording. Like sometimes my voice would do this weird like bleeding goat thing. I don't know. And he would be like, Like he would just stop in the song and be like, bleeding goat, and I'd be like, okay, got to rein that in. But we had all these because he really like knew what
Was that like
you
your
know
vibrato?
I guess so.
Okay. I'm just thinking of like a vibration of a goat being like bah.
Yeah, it must have been some awkwardly natural.
He's like you sound very monotone and it's shaky. Please stop doing
Yeah,
that. This is making me uncomfortable.
absolutely. Oh, and you know what too? Like a lot of it was my accent. I don't even have a really strong Jersey accent anymore,
No,
but
not
I
now.
feel like it came out in singing, and people would try to stop it, and he was just like, "No, that's staying there. Like that's who you are."
Oh wow.
And and that's really cool because it just kind of stops you from overthinking everything.
So when you got onto Tooth and Nail, was there, just to put it out there, was there anything in the contract that talked about religion? Did they talk about religion? Was it in your face? Because I really want people to know what it was really like, what that real story was like with this label.
No, 100% not. There's nothing in the contract about it, and there was never any expectation of stuff that we should do. Like all we were expected to do was put out good songs.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure if we wrote songs about Satan, they may have had a talk with us. Like if we became like, terrible like Satanists or something. I don't know. But nothing, they had no, like we weren't required to like write lyrics about religion or talk about religion or not have sex or act a certain way. Like it was strictly just putting out good records, and the rest was up to us.
So
And
what
I
was,
think that's reflected in a lot of their bands. Like I saw some of their bands and they would talk about their faith, and other bands like you would never ever know, and it was kind of just up to you.
well, what was the religious thing then? They were just people who were Christian or Catholic that started a label, or like why was that so tied to them?
I kind of like providing, I don't know, I kind of think of it like as providing a safety net for people. So like if you're, especially if you're like a kid who grows up in the church, like I said, my parents were like super strict. So they would, when I would be listening to music, they would be like, what is that? If they like caught me listening to something they didn't like the sound of,
Hmm.
let's say, and then I could just be like, oh, it's from a Christian record label. And then they'd be like, oh, okay. Like I think it kind of provided an avenue for kids who maybe wouldn't have been able to get into a scene more than anything.
Yeah, I remember back then, I forget when it was, but there was some special on MTV or some music thing, and they were talking about Christian rock, and they were showing these metal bands, and I'm watching it going, I just can't connect the dots between how this works. But then later on, like I said, I started listening to Under Oath. I'm going, oh my God, this is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved that band a lot when they put out Define the Great Lion or whatever it was. There was some record I'm going, how the fuck is this a Christian band?
Well, and I think it's what you were saying about like these people who can't, separate their faith from everything else. Like you can still believe something and still write cool songs and do, dress cool, like whatever it is. Like you can still be a normal person who likes science or who likes it. Like you don't have to just have that one thing permeate every part of your life. And the people that can't figure that out, I think, come off as like fake and awkward and like nobody likes them.
Yeah, it was kind of like, yeah.
And bands too, like wouldn't like a band that comes off that way, but it shouldn't. I don't know why it gets
Well,
to
it's
that.
also like when we would be at shows back then or driving to shows, you almost felt like you had to put fucking Lagwagon or No Effects or something on your car, and then you'd put
Yeah.
on, I don't know, fucking Sugar Ray or like Matthew Starr or something, and people were like, "Wait a minute, what is this?" You're going, "I like this. This is pretty awesome." Like I've talked many times about how I'm a giant John Mayer fan. Like I'm like, he's hilarious. His music's amazing. If I said that when I was 17, my friends would be like, "Get the fuck out of the car."
Oh,
They're like, "You're
totally,
not
totally.
cool. You're not punk rock enough." I'd be like, "All right."
And I can remember listening. The bass player I told you, our first bass player who was into hardcore. He had this like minivan, was his car, and I remember being in his minivan, and he played me a cassette tape of Jimmy Eat World, and I was like, "What is this?" Because all we listened to was punk and hard, and all this kid listened to was hardcore, and I was like, "What is this? Like, this is amazing!" Like, it was just so weird that like this is something, you know, these same people would listen to. And then I remember when, did you ever go to shows at Skaters
Oh yeah.
World? So they I had Jimmy Eat World and Get Up Kids
Wait, you
played
were at that
there,
show?
and
Yep. Yeah, I
yeah,
was
oh,
there. That was the first time I
amazing.
ever heard of the Get Up Kids and saw them live.
Yeah, me too. That was like so that was a great place. I loved playing there and
Oh
going
yeah.
there.
Did you know if we ever played a show together?
So I asked Danny this because he remembers everything, and he said we played in Roselle. He actually sent me a flyer for it.
What?
I'll send it to
Which year
you.
was
I can
this?
send it to you right now. Um,
I'm gonna look it up in the archives.
it says Holiday Productions presents Punk Episode 1, February 25th at the Cove in Roselle.
The Cove. Roselle Park?
Advance tickets through Curmudgeon and Vintage Vinyl Records. I'm gonna just text it
Yeah.
to you.
Send me a picture of this.
We can multitask.
Yeah, because I'm trying to find it on the archive.
Okay, it's coming
Actually,
your way.
and as we're doing this, I'll send you a link to the the NJ archive. Here, I'll send it. Yeah, I'll send it to Flyers. Um, yeah, because I was trying to think if we had ever met back then or hung out. Because we were friends with Humble Beginnings and Boxcar and God, High Strung and fucking all these bands. So we would kind of not or like Red Rover, like we would all hang out afterwards and shows. There were
Yeah.
some bands that we never really like. We'd see them play, but we wouldn't like hang out with them ever. And I was like, I don't remember ever hanging out with you guys. Oh, this is cool. It's like a Star Wars font. What
Yeah.
is it? Holiday Productions, Episode 1. See, Youth Ahead, Landmark, Element 101. I do not remember this. I mean,
Yeah, I know. I mean, it sounds familiar to me, but I can't like specifically remember it.
it's too funny.
Oh, and it's from NJPP
Yeah.
Archives.
I feel like this would be like 97.
We'll have to ask Danny. He might.
Yeah. Um,
And I listened to your discount podcast
oh, cool.
too. I remember being at the backyard show in
Oh, you went to
Wayne where
Allen's?
they played.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I swear to God, we must have been at so many shows at the same time back then.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
totally.
too wild. What was it like? It's just like I'm just like jumping all around, but what was it like being on tour with these guys?
With the guys in the
Yeah, like
band.
what was it like? I don't know when
Oh, being a girl.
it's like I don't want to ask that question like that because I feel like that's such an easy go-to, and it's like it's like here's the girl interview. What was it like touring with guys? But like, what was it just like touring?
Touring was I mean, I guess I've always had good bands I've toured with, so I guess I've been lucky in that sense. But it was we never really like as an element we mostly slept on like people's basement floors and like living room floors and stuff and like so yeah, I remember we played one show, a place called Route 66 in South Carolina, and there happened to be a snowstorm, which like never happened, so nobody came. And they paid us in fried chicken and they let us sleep in like the attic of the place and there's like giant cockroaches everywhere and like yeah it was a rough day but
Jesus.
but they were always like very the guys in Element are all really gentlemen, I have to say, so they would always like go out of their way to like carry my bag or make sure like I had the nicest place to sleep. I remember one time feeling like creeped out because we stayed at this kid's house and his older brother came home like on drugs and like it was just a creepy situation. And I remember telling Chris, I was like, I'm freaked out. And Chris like just sat up all night and like stood guard
Oh
for me,
wow.
which is like so sweet, you know. But I feel like they were good. Of course, there's the terrible things like I always had to pay and nobody else did, and like they're all paying in bottles, so we'd be like, oh, we have to stop for Crissie again. Like, Nick would call me the pee princess because I'd always be like, can we please stop?
Yeah, but I'll say though this, like, so, not to put this on me, but like, the other guys in my band were big at peeing in bottles. I am so pee shy. I was like, dude, I need to fucking pull over. I cannot pee in front. You to this day, I have to go in a
Yeah,
stall. I'm like, I can't pee in front of people. I just can't do it. So I was like, pull the fuck over. But I could also go into a field, which probably would have been a bit different.
yeah. I wouldn't even mind like a tree. Just give me a
Oh, okay.
tree.
We don't have to stay on this conversation, but
But
it's like then they talked about peeing for like 30 minutes.
for like well, it's funny because I'm a geologist now, so like peeing outside is like a
Oh yeah,
normal thing that you just have to do. So kind of carried over in life. Good skills that I
that's
learned.
hilarious. Do you have any cool tour stories at all, or any like bands that you were on tour with who were like super fun or just fucking nuts or anything like that?
I guess we toured with Further Seems Forever a lot, and at the end, and they were like probably our closest friend band, and they were just we would have just ridiculous fights all the time, like whether it was shaving cream fights or like silly string or like one time somebody had like a giant box of bagels in their van and we just like threw bagels at each other, like um and airsoft guns, like just always something, like some prank, like lots of pranks going on. And then it gets, somebody found a dead bird and put it on our windshield, like whatever. It ends up
So we
getting
took
like
half of the cow we
this.
hit and put it on
Oh,
theirs.
exactly.
They're like,
um,
Jesus Christ,
but
guys.
we,
That's fucking dark.
and lots of like getting, put when we did drive cars, little accidents. Thankfully, nobody ever was hurt in, or like getting stuck in a ditch on the side of the road. Like, definitely had we were a hardworking band for sure. Who else? We played with this band called the Strider
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot. They're from like New
Yeah, I
York,
remember them.
and I remember having really good memories of them. Like they were just kind of like out there and funny, like really funny.
Wasn't
Um,
Eben from Saves the Day, wasn't he in the Strider originally? Wasn't he?
oh, I think you're right. I'm not
I thought he
positive.
was. I thought he was in that, and then he went to Humble, and then he went to Saves the Day.
I can't remember. They were a really good band, though. I don't know whatever happened to them, but they were
Yeah, they
great.
were really cool. We played with them in, I think, Montclair State, that we played a show with them.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
I think it was like towards the end where we were about ready to call it quits because we were not a band that got along super great all the time. Like I always say these stories like we got along great, everyone got along. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck was that like? We were just so
Because it's pretty awful when you don't get
Did you
along.
think being on the label helped you kind of like we talked before how there was like a breath of fresh air, just kind of sigh of relief that you had that extra help. Do you think that kind of helped you guys not stress out where that helped you get along better? Because you're like, oh well, we're on the label. This is like a good sign that we can grow from here. We really want to keep doing
Yeah,
this.
because you have like a motivator behind you all the
Mm,
time. And I think like, obviously, like at that point, you're like, okay, our goal is to like be the biggest band in the world. So you have bigger hopes that that's going to
is that what you wanted?
happen. We wanted to just make a living doing it, really. Like we loved touring and we loved writing. And I think it became stressful when, like I said, people started to grow up
Yeah.
and, get married and whatnot. And then it's a different scene. So now it's like, okay, well, you're leaving, so you better come home with money. And Element never made money really. Like we made very little money. So, and even in my later bands, like it was always, they were the most stressful because at that point, like we were grown-ups and we needed to pay the rent and stuff. And finally, the very last band I was in was called Old Wives, and it was the first time where we were just like, we're never leaving Jersey and we don't care if we make a penny. We're just doing this for
That's
fun
awesome.
again. And it was like some of the best music I thought I was ever a part of because it was just totally enjoyable.
Did you? Wow, hold on, I'm actually looking up Old Wives. I never even heard of
It was actually Jason Gleason was still the singer, and I played keyboards, but we had different people than Action Reaction.
different
So
Element members coming in.
actually, no more Element came in. It was just different people from like the area that we knew.
Yeah, I remember. Did you guys know Casey Morgan? Casey Lee Morgan. He was in Forever Endeavor. I feel like he was friends with Jason.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, I remember him posting back then. I think it was when Old Wives started. What year was that when you guys did that?
That is a good question. Probably, well, I want to say maybe
Oh, okay.
2008,
Yeah, this might have been that time. Because
2009.
I remember I was really big into Further Seems Forever, and when Jason came in, I mean, obviously it totally changed. The sound was the same, but the singer was different, obviously, and it was to me it was noticeable,
Yeah.
and it was hard to go from the Moon Is Down to the next record for myself, and then the third one when John was in it, who was in
Yeah, Sunfield.
Sedgefield, yeah, I loved that record. I loved the songs they did. I couldn't get into the Jason one, and but I thought his voice was fantastic. And but it just he was on my radar because when he had left Further Seems For, because he had quit that band, right? Or they kicked. Okay, so
Yeah.
he left, and remember he'd started Action Reaction, and then he did. old wives. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I thought that there was like some interview with him asking him about like Further Seems Forever, which I feel like he must have gotten all the fucking time.
Oh yeah, and he got a lot of crap for having to fill Chris's shoes. I know that was like
Yeah.
that was a challenging thing to get
Did
past.
that, jump back into Element, but like Action Reaction, did you find that followed you guys?
Yeah, definitely, because everyone was like, well, and the thing I think people expected us to sound like Further Seems
Uh,
Forever, and then when we didn't, it was like, huh. And Action Reaction was all about being weird. Like we were into being a weird band, you know. So we just never were in front of the right crowd, and I think that I think his fans were like impatient and waiting for him to release something, and then when he finally released something, it wasn't what they wanted, and it just didn't work
did that
out,
kind of piss
you
you
know.
off though? I mean, you got to think about it. You start in a band, so you're getting shit for being in a girl band, and then you're on fucking Tooth and Nail, and everyone thinks you're Christian, so you have that, and then you join this next band, and everyone's giving you shit because he was in Further Seems Forever. Like, can I just be in a fucking band where people aren't like they don't have fucking expectations, they just want to hear the music?
Yeah, and to be honest, I never felt like we were in front of people who got it. Like I always would see bands play, even when I'd see Further play, and the fans would just be singing along and freaking out, and like we never really like had that. I feel like it was like in every band I've ever been in, it's always like blank stares, like, do I like this or not like this? I don't know, you know.
So like so
So
everyone
yeah,
was
I
just in
definitely
front of you with their arms folded, just giving you like the impress us, and they never stopped.
totally. And Action Reaction, we got put on tour with a lot of bands that weren't really our style. Like we did a really big run with Armor for Sleep, and their crowd just didn't get us.
I could see that.
That's why at least Old Wives was like we just played bars in like New York City and New Jersey, and people liked us for the first time. They didn't know our songs, but they liked us, so that was like a pretty cool thing. But at the time, me and Jason were married, so it was both of us were in the band, so neither of us were making money with a normal day job. So that was really challenging. It got really stressful, like towards the end of Action Reaction, um, because just it's a bummer. That's how life
Yeah,
goes.
man,
But
money can have a hell of a weight of just your decision making. That even now, I talk about this a lot where I work for myself and I have like I do freelance stuff and I do this for fun and I have this comic that I do and I want to do more of this and do more of my comic and being at 40 years old, I'm trying to be like, yeah, I got to still pay bills. I'm going like, yeah, but I don't know. I don't really want. It's like this. It's the age-old thing where it's yeah, but money, money, money. I'm like, yeah, but then nothing's. I'm never gonna fucking create anything if I have to keep worrying about that. So maybe I'll
yeah,
live a little bit
and you
poorer.
can't create something good if you're worried about money. Like it just stifles it so
It does.
badly.
There's so many things that I want to do with this, and the more time I spend on this, I'm going, yeah, but I'm not fucking spending any money, the time on that freelancing thing. Now I'm like at rent, but this is
Yeah,
like what I enjoy. Like I'm taking an hour and a half of my time to do something like this, and this stuff doesn't pay. I'm like, but I fucking love it.
yeah. So you got to
Yeah,
do
exactly.
it. I
Like all
know.
the time.
It's nice if you. Right now, I have a job that I love, and it's the first time I've ever like been able to like make somewhat of a living, doing something I
Nice.
enjoy. And if you can make that happen,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of great. I did that for a while, freelancing, and then I just kind of like, I'm so sick of making shit for people. So I was like, I'm so fucking over it. That's why that's the problem is that being in bands, we were creating stuff and said, look, this is what we make and buy it as is. No one ever came to us and said, okay, I think for the next record, here's my ideas for your songs. You're like, go get fucked. Like, you
yeah.
know,
And it's the same reason I hate playing covers because I'm like, it's not my song. I didn't write it. I like it the way it is. Let me write my own song.
interesting. What did you write your songs about? Like, what were they? Did you, yeah, like what were your topics?
An element, I would say, I guess a lot of it's just like teenage angst stuff and like girl drama, like a lot of it's about boys. Um, I've always been like a hopeless romantic for sure. So always some boy that I was whatever about. And, but I was really into being like a positive person. And so I think a lot of them are, I was trying to like use the fact that I could write lyrics that people would listen to and sing along to write something
Hmm.
positive about like getting through your day or, finding the good inside yourself and in other people and working through hard times and, um, when bad things happen, like still being able to, look like, feel what you're feeling and then move past it and know that you'll move past it,
Did you ever have someone come up to you who was a fan of that and got your lyrics and said like, "This is really, I love your band and I love your lyrics because they are positive like this."
Yeah, definitely. A lot of, and actually what's interesting is since Facebook came out, like when I didn't know like you could get messages from people you weren't friends with, and then one day I realized that you can, and I saw all these messages like 2 years ago or something. I saw all these messages from people who basically said that they're like, I loved Element and like your lyrics this, or I saw you play and we talked about this afterwards, and it was actually like made me like so happy. So I just think that's like really cool to be able to like maybe just make somebody feel a little better about something even for a minute,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because the thing is when you're writing, it's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
yeah, and it's
definitely.
just depending on how far you go with that. Like some people go really far and they express a lot, or some people kind of hide it poetically, but you can kind of read through it and see what they're saying. And then the cool thing is like like actually running into them and be like, "Hey, is this song actually about this?" And then they could say like, "Yeah, it is," or if it's like the Suicide Machine, it's like, "No, that song's about my dog." And you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Someone asked, I have said it before about that song about the Suicide Machine's last record. I was like, oh, it was such shit. And someone's like, hey man, I think someone said, if I got you in touch with the Suicide Machines, would you want to interview them? I'm like, I would, but I wouldn't want them to know that I said their last record was shit. So no. It's like, there's no way.
That's too
Yeah.
funny.
Um,
That's hilarious. I think a lot of people thought my lyrics were about God, and then I'd be like, no, it's about a boy. There's a few times that
were
happened.
you dating
But
people when you were on tour? Like all of us always had girlfriends when we go on the road, and that was always stressful because there was no phones or things
yeah,
like that. Did you have the same problem? The same problem.
I did. I had like one boyfriend, and yeah, it was really challenging because he was actually like super duper jealous that I was always with boys. So it was already stressful that I was like touring with boys, and then like you said, there's no cell phone. So I remember having calling cards and like talking to him in the payphone in the rain, and everyone's like, "We have to go." I think Christmas Zone was the first to get a cell phone, and we all would try to like use
Hmm.
it. But yeah, it was really stressful. And then it was easier once I started dating somebody in a band because then they got it. They're just like, okay, cool. Like when your tour is done, let's meet up when my tour is done.
Yeah.
And I saw that happen too, like with the guys and their girlfriends and wives. It is, unfortunately, it is super stressful because most people just don't get it. And if they're not there to see it, they don't really understand like what happens. And because you have to put so much time in, like even practicing, it's like multiple times a week, and then you prepare for a tour, and then you're gone for like a month, and it's like a lot of work, and you don't have a lot of time because you're always driving or sleeping or loading or unloading or merch, and
Oh yeah.
it's a lot
Yeah,
of
rinse and
work.
repeat every day. It's the same thing, and you have time in between, and maybe you have a few drinks. The worst would be you'd have a few drinks and you'd call them and they'd be like, "Are you drunk?" And you're like, "Oh, here we go."
No, no,
No,
I'm
I'm
not
not drunk. Are you
drunk.
drunk and around all those guys? You're like, "Shit, fuck, Chris."
And there was never service because like when we did finally, like I said, Chris finally got a cell phone, so it was like okay, but you'd be in the middle of the country, there's no service, so how do you, like, it's hard to explain that when cell phones just came out. It's like, oh, we don't have service out here, and people are like,
Yeah, there
what?
was no 5G back then, or whatever the shit is
Yeah.
now. There wasn't even like a G. It was just like,
There's I remember like trying to like we'd stay at somebody's house who had like old dial-up internet and be like, well, if I could send an email on my AOL account,
oh yeah.
then they'll know that I still love
Oh man,
them.
that was the best. Going to staying at someone's house and then they're like, "Yeah, I have internet." And then you'd say like, "All right, me first." And then you'd form a line. Did you ever do that?
Yep,
And you're like, "Okay, I'm going
exactly.
second." Because we're like, "God damn it."
Yep, and somebody takes forever.
Yeah. We would just be looking over our shoulders like, "Are you fucking done yet?" I gotta like for me, I was like, I gotta instant message my girlfriend. That
Yeah,
was it.
yeah.
That's all I had to do.
That's
It's like, "Are you on?"
so
Yeah.
funny. And my parents were always afraid because they're like, I remember being like our very first tour, they were like, what do you mean you're like going with all these guys? And so they wanted me to check in, and I was like, I really
You're like, "Sorry,
can't.
mom and dad. This is me finally fucking rebelling against all your rules.
Yeah,
Peace out."
this is black sheep.
And I'm bringing the harp.
Yeah. It was always my goal to get the harp involved in the action. I did one like little I played it on a few songs here and there for fun, but maybe future Crissie will have some awesome rock record with the harp. I'll
It'll
let
just
you know. It's in my head to come
it'll
out.
just be Christina,
Yeah.
the mature Crissie. All right, how did you talked earlier about this? I really want to know how you said that you guys all got along, but then it ended kind of rigidly. How did the band actually end?
Um, we kind of had like a few rough things happen at the same time. I know, um, some members were kind of just getting over with touring and wanted to be home with their families and like actually start a grown-up life. So like that was kind of an initial stressor. And then we really weren't making money. And you know, it was like you had a certain amount of money like that you were given from the label, but it didn't like cover all your touring and stuff. So like just became harder and harder to tour. Like we would tour for a while, go home, work, save some money so we could go back and tour. Like we all painted houses and stuff. And
Oh wow.
then go back on the road for a little bit. But then we actually were in Oregon. We were in Oregon on tour. We were about to go to California, and Nick, our drummer, got really sick. So we took him to the hospital, and he had meningitis.
Oh,
And I can't remember who we were on tour with at the time, but it was a good tour. And it was like bad. So like he had to. I remember we all slept in the van that night, and we're like, "What's going to happen?" And thank God nobody else had it because it wasn't viral. But he basically had to stay in the hospital for a while. So we just packed the van up and drove from Oregon to New Jersey and spent whatever money we had left getting home. And then his parents had to like fly out there and help him. He was out there for like a while afterwards. So that was like a real downer. Like we didn't get to finish the tour. We lost a lot of money. And then we kind of like when our record finally, our last record that was supposed to come out, More Than Motion, the release date was September 11th.
oh God.
And so like it came out and nobody knew. And it just kind of like was a bummer. Like it was a real bummer because we felt like it didn't get promoted and it just was like a forgotten thing that happened. And then we did kind of, try to do a little bit of touring and shows after that, but um, it kind of just was dead at that point. Everybody was just like, you know what, like we're over it and we want to do different things. And at that point, like some members had, talked about forming other local bands, like just for fun and, just kind of like settling down and not really doing the touring thing anymore. But I remember it being just like the most devastating thing that happened in my life at that time. And then when I came home from that tour and I had an 89 Dodge Dynasty was like my car and it died like the same day I got home and I was like, I don't have a freaking car now either. Like just so
And
devastating.
then you walked outside and someone just randomly punched you in the face, and you're like, "Here we go."
Exactly. Bring it on. But it was just like such a down time. And it was probably like I remember it was an entire year of just being like so bummed out and I didn't know what to do. I actually moved to Florida, like with the Further guys and lived down there for that year. So I didn't, because it kind of ended weird, like we stopped talking. Like, so I really was only talking to Danny and Nick a little bit. And it was just like this weird, it's like I lost my friends, my family, my job, my passion, like all in the same minute. And it was like super
Yeah,
depressing. And that whole year, like I couldn't find a job. It was just a big bummer.
that's rough,
Um,
man.
yeah, it was like super sad. It was like a big heartbreak.
Where were you living in Jersey, real quick?
I grew up in Cedar Grove.
And that's where you're living the whole time?
That's where I lived the
Okay.
whole time. Yeah.
All right. I just had to know because just anyone listening in Jersey just they love. I mean, I love knowing where people were in the state. So I just feel like people talk about like, oh,
Yeah.
I know about
And
this.
then since I moved to Florida for that one year, and then I moved back the following year to Verona, and I've been in Verona since. I had one year in South Orange, but I'm still in Verona, which is like just such a great town.
Yeah, my buddy Thomas lives there. When I was freelancing years ago, we went to his house a couple times. I was like, this is a cool fucking part of Jersey.
It is. It's just like a little town, like lots of like just normal people who work really hard and lots of families. You're like by Montclair. It's easy to get everywhere. It is a nice spot.
Where in Florida were you living?
We lived in Pompano Beach. That's where Further's from. First Things Forever is right by Fort
Okay.
Lauderdale.
It was funny when you mentioned the September 11th thing. I interviewed James from Fun Size, who then went and did River City High. and he was telling the whole story about them putting their record out, and 9/11 happened and then fucked them too. Like,
Really? Yeah.
yeah, just like,
We should have had like another release date, like a re-release date, but it was too
yeah.
late.
I mean, it sounds awful. I said it like that. Like, yeah, that thing just ruined everyone's careers. It's like, well, like someone's listening, man, that was cold. That was
Yeah,
cold. It's like, no, it's like that stupid day.
that bad, awful day.
Ruining.
Yeah, but I mean, you just can't like recover from that. It's like something so
Well, I mean,
bad.
you got to think about it too. Yeah, I mean, and that puts so many people just were bummed out for so long. And I mean, Chris, even
They just
yeah, and
missed
Jimmy Eat
it.
World had to change their
Yeah,
fucking record to just Jimmy Eat World instead of Bleed American. I mean, it had a ripple effect. But
yeah,
for a band that was trying to make it, and you guys had spent however long making More Than Motion, and it comes out, and you're so excited, and you're like, what the fuck? And then it's not like you could just go back in the studio. It's like, all right, let's write another fucking 12 songs and go back into a studio with no money, and
yeah,
the label wasn't going to pay for it. Like, shit. I bet the terrorists didn't think about that, now did they?
yeah, and like, right? All the bands are
Yeah,
saying.
that's so dark.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw on the so anyone listening too, they have Element's got a Instagram account too, so it's element_101. So you should go check it out. It's got a bunch of pictures from back then, but the one that stood out to me, just because you had said it'd been so long since you guys saw each other, there's a photo from October 30th, 2016, where it says you guys are all looks like you're at a wedding or something.
Oh yeah, yeah. We were at Danny's wedding. That was the first time we've been together in a
That
long
was what I was going to
time.
point out because you said you lost your friends and you lost touch and it was a while, but that photo is like the what's the fucking word? The photo shows that day that you guys all finally saw each other again.
Yeah, and you're right. It was like a really long time, and everybody went in such different directions that I think I was the only one that toured. Toured. Nick actually toured with another band for a little bit doing drums, but yeah, we all just went to totally different directions, and that was like a nice moment. And we really didn't even talk that much at the wedding, but it was nice to just like have everybody together. And so no promises, but very through like Danny kind of putting all this stuff on Instagram and like he's always trying to get everybody together, and talk about it. And Facebook has really shown us too that like people did like us. Like you think like, oh, nobody liked us, but then like you start seeing people on social media and it's like, oh, people did actually
Yeah.
like us. So we are actually like supposed to hang out, all of us, this Sunday, which will be like the first time we've hung out, like just hang out. And there's like a rumor that we might want to record a song for fun, like a new song, like for a 7-inch or something.
Do
Who
it.
knows?
Do it.
Like,
Totally do it.
no, like we'll see how it goes, but it's exciting to think about because it was, when you looking back on it and you kind of forget about all the crappy stuff and remember the good stuff. And it would be nice to kind of have
The
that
fact that
again.
you guys are all of you are in New Jersey.
Yeah.
The fact that you're all there makes it so much easier for you to get together and practice and write that song and then just find some place and record it. And you guys all have jobs now and be like, we can just kind of chip in and just fucking do this for one song. Yeah,
Totally.
you guys should
And
totally fuck
there's
do it.
one, two,
You should
three.
totally do it.
There's 5 daughters now. There's 5 Element
Oh,
daughters.
wow. That's right, because you just had your daughter.
No boys, actually, only girls.
They're all girls?
It's going to be a future girl band for sure.
That's great. What's your daughter's name? She's a couple months old, right?
Yeah, Sydney
Oh, wow.
Fox. She's 2.5 months old.
That's wild.
It is so wild. I play her Element. She loves Blondie, the Go-Go's, and the Beach Boys right now. Those are like her top favorite
That's too
bands.
funny. That,
But she really digs it. Like she really responds to like certain bands over other bands.
then you start playing the harp.
Yeah, and she's like, "What is
Like,
this?"
that's way cooler.
I want to set up like a theremin and just like freak her out.
That's awesome. Where would you guys want to record if you did do the one song?
I mean, I'd love to say we'd go to the blasting room, but if we had to, I don't know where we would go around here.
Yeah, I don't even know. I know there is so Chris, who was in my band, he did a band called Day at the Fair, and he recorded some stuff at Rob something from the something band. I gotta look this
I I love him.
up. Shit. Oh man. There's a studio. I think he's still in Booton, but He was in, oh God, this is gonna kill me. I forget the name of his band. They were on Drive Through. Fuck. He does a great job. Um, so if you guys are looking, like if you guys are talking, if you want to hit me up and just say like, hey, we're looking for options, I can
Cool.
send you his information. 'Cause I can hit Chris up and ask him.
That'd be
But he
awesome.
does a really good job. But yeah, I mean, I think you should totally. We've talked about, me and Chris each wrote us two songs, and we want to record it. But I live in Raleigh, and he's in Jersey, Casey's in Jersey, and Sean's out in Arizona. I'm like, how the fuck are we gonna do this? Like, so the fact that you guys are
Mm,
all there in Jersey, it's like, I'm sure Sunday you guys are gonna be super excited when you get together.
yeah. Yeah, it'll be nice. And everybody's like in a better place. So you just, like I said, you remember the good things and just go with it.
Yeah.
But that would be awesome because I don't think we'll make it to Colorado.
Hey, you never know. Are you still friends with Bill?
Bill Power?
Bill Stevenson.
Bill Stevenson?
Oh,
I don't know why I thought you meant Bill
yeah.
Power.
I was
Sorry.
like, who the fuck is that? Who are you talking about?
Yes, we are like, I see them whenever they come, whenever the Descendants have played New York or Jersey. I've gone out to see them, always go hang out with them.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so I'm like basic friends. And actually, when we were out there recording, his daughter was like maybe 4 or 5 at the time, and she just thought I was like the coolest. So me and her like really bonded. And she was just in the studio with us the whole time. And then, so now I follow her on Facebook, and it's just wild to see her as like a 20-something-year-old.
Oh
It's like, oh
wow.
my god. But yeah, we still keep in touch, especially with
That's so
Bill.
cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it really, and that's the nice thing about social media, as much as I sometimes hate it, is like you just get to connect with people and like see them and stuff where you really probably wouldn't have
Well, using it the
otherwise.
right way.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
So
super
real quick,
nice.
his name's Rob Freeman. He was from Hidden in Plainview, and yeah, he lives in Sparta, but his studio I think is in Boonton. So, but yeah, if you guys do decide and you are looking, like, just hit me up and I can say I can connect you, but no pressure. Um, all
I think we should do it. It sounds fun.
right, so I'm gonna wrap this up because you have to go and dig up things outside and analyze them, right? That's what you do.
Yes. I'll like
It's just go find dinosaur bones in your backyard in Verona, New
bones
Jersey.
and rocks. I just have a love affair with rocks, really. I was like, well, I made it in rock in one way. I didn't make it in rock and roll, but at
Heyo.
least I made it in rock.
I'll just like and I'll put in like a snare drum hit right there. All right, so I asked two questions before I end the conversation, but one of them is, what would you like to plug before I ask the last question?
What would I like to plug?
And it could either be something that you want to plug, or it could be something you want to plug about somebody else, because people never think about that.
What do I want to plug? It's so, hmm. Oh, it's like hard to think of things I want to plug
It's like you're
musically.
back in the record store.
Yeah, it is.
See how I
It
bring
is.
things back around? I'm really good at that.
Well, and it's so, unfortunately, like new bands, I don't really listen to that much new stuff these days. I would like to, but it just doesn't, I never really get to finding it. I usually kind of listen to like 88.7, William Patterson's radio
Oh
station,
yeah.
or 90.7 WFM
Hmm.
FUV, and like whatever they have on is cool. I just like go to the website really fast, and like that's kind of how I find new music now.
So is that your
Um,
plug?
that's my plug. Yeah, you know what? My plug is listen to local radio because I listen 88.7 up here is William Patterson, and once I go to Rutgers in New Brunswick, and it becomes Rutgers when you get closer, when you go to Central Jersey, and so much good music on there that like I would literally never hear or listen to. So I'm gonna plug local radio
Sweet.
stations to support them
That's
for
awesome.
sure.
Yeah, it's cool that because it's still run by college kids, and it's cool that they're
Yeah,
still finding good music to put out in front of people.
right. And I know some people just like wait for the release dates and like go on iTunes or whatever, but it's hard to find time to do that. But you're in your car, you're always driving, and like especially these days, major radio stations can suck so bad. So it's just nice to be like, oh, I can listen to this, and I love like the different radio shows, like being able to listen to a whole show where somebody has just like a cool vibe going that you would not even know about.
Yeah, I just do that with podcasts. I listen to
Yeah.
so many now. just because it's like I feel like I'm like my dad back in the 80s or 90 whatever he would listen to those and just listen to AM radio and I'd be in the car I'm like this is so boring and now I'm going this is so fascinating.
It's amazing how that happens, right?
Yeah, and then I like make one. I'm like, what the fuck? How did I get here? What have I
That's
become? I'm
awesome.
40. Oh, sweet God.
You become my father.
All right, so last question, and I'll let you be on your way. What scene ethics do you still hold on to this day?
I would say, which is kind of a theme in a lot of this conversation, is to just like be true to who you are and don't worry about fitting in. Um, just do what you like, and it will bring you to where you're supposed to be. Like one thing to another, like you will get there. But like, don't be afraid to stick out and just be the weird one. It's okay.